lastly, we have Friday the 13th Part 2. And if you are familiar with the Friday the 13th series, this is the first movie in which Jason is the killer, only he's wearing like a bag over his head, as opposed to his famous hockey mask, which doesn't show up until movie 3. In this movie, it pretty much follows the first one. There's a camp that's on the same lake as Camp Crystal Lake. They're trying to get ready for the summer. There's people coming in for like counselor training, and as it so happens, Jason is nearby and he sees some counselors and he just goes angry and just attacks them. As just typical Friday the 13th movies, which isn't to say there's not like things in this movie to enjoy. I really like the first movie, and the second movie I think also has like a lot of interesting characters. There's not that many slasher movies that have a character in a wheelchair, for instance, and I know it's small things, but there's a lot of like characters in this movie I thought were interesting. I appreciated, like the one redhead guy. I forget what his name was. And that guy actually has sort of an interesting story arc too, which is sort of unusual for a Friday the 13th movie. I know, it's a movie I've seen so many times. I've seen many of the Friday the 13th movies multiple times. I can't even remember when I first saw this, probably when I was a kid at some point. But there's a lot of, in my opinion, great kills. In fact, there's only one that I thought was particularly unsatisfactory. And I think the ending was decently clever. But before I keep fawning on about this movie, and I will, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, to start off with, I wouldn't say the movie has great kills. I think it has okay kills. There's nothing in this movie that I would be like, I gotta go back and watch that kill again. But, with that being said, there's also not really... most of the kills are fine in the movie, so if you're watching
I think the upside down thought slitting is pretty decent, but to each his own.
Yeah, if you're just watching it for the slasher aspect of it, I'm sure you're going to have a decent time with it. It certainly does okay in that area. Just a quick recap of what I thought of the original. So I had some problems with the original and how a lot of the kills are like first-person view, and it wasn't necessarily who was doing the kills that was the problem. I just didn't really enjoy that.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah. Oh, it's you. So I didn't necessarily have a problem with the identity or what they're trying to do there, but I feel the style of that movie is just, I hate playing first-person view video games. Now I'm watching a movie with first-person kills, and I think it's an okay effect if you're doing it like as a once-off. Like, you can see it in Halloween. At the start of Halloween, they have that same effect. But in Friday the 13th, they pretty much use that effect throughout most of the movie. And it's toned down a lot here, I guess. But still, a thing about this is that, like, I don't mind the beginning scene to this movie, but at the same time, if you go back and watch it again after having watched all the sequels, it doesn't really make sense. Like, it doesn't feel like something Jason would do. Like, I don't know where that location is, but it's not near the camp, is it?
No, I would say I agree completely with you, and it doesn't change my view whatsoever.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect too much my enjoyment of the movie, but at the same time, it just doesn't. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. It feels. And from my understanding, I think they actually filmed that after the rest of the movie was made, so they had the actors come back just to do the scene. And it feels pretty atypical of pretty much anything else you see, which is somewhat interesting because Jason in this movie actually feels a lot different than most other Jasons, but I'm going to touch on that a little later.
I guess you can't really blame it because, the sequels came later, so the sequels really retroactively affected this one, I guess. But with that being said, this movie's, it's decent. It's still one of my lesser liked Friday the 13th movies, and partially that's because I think Jason just works a lot better as a hockey mask killer than, a guy with a bag on his head. Even though I don't mind the bag head look, myself. Like, I think it's fine, and the scenes towards the end of the movie where you see him a lot more, they're enjoyable. But yeah, clearly, it's not his best screen presence that you can see in any of his movies. So,
well, I think on one note, Jason here feels a lot more human than he does in other movies. I mean, this scene, I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but I always found it funny. That scene where he's about to kill that woman and the chair he's standing on breaks. I thought that was, I was sort of amusing. I mean, he gets knocked down a few times in this movie. It's nothing as over the top as you might see in Scream, but I mean, he definitely, and you see him running too, so he feels a lot more human here than he does in almost any other Friday the 13th movie, and I sort of appreciated the, I guess the more human aspect of him, as opposed to like ultra zombie Jason who could never be harmed.
Yeah, I still prefer that over this, but yeah. I mean, there's a couple of decent things in the movie that I do enjoy, though. I like the whole keeping of the severed head thing. I really enjoyed that, having that kind of like shrine.
Yeah, I actually thought the whole idea of I forget what the main girl's character's name is. I'm trying to find it quickly, but it's not coming to me. Ginny, played by Amy Steele. I thought she was a really a really interesting character because she has a whole focus in child psychology, which is pretty unique in that she sort of knows how to maybe manipulate Jason in ways that other characters wouldn't, and you sort of see that toward the end of the movie. And she's definitely one of those characters where I think she much like Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, I think she really does a good job fighting against what she is unexpectedly poured into.
That one guy decided to stay at the bar. I mean, what a boss move. I mean,
I know.
You want to survive a movie, that's how you do it. Just stay and get drunk.
Yeah, which is, again, interesting because they introduce him and you just expect that character to meet a somewhat, grisly end, and nothing happens. He doesn't pop up at the end or anything, which, I don't know, I think that's not something I've seen that many times. I'm sure it's happened, before, and I'm sure it's happened again, but I can't think of any exact examples. So I sort of liked that. Just another small thing. The wheelchair guy I thought was interesting. I sort of liked, we didn't see much of him, but we saw enough of him to make him a character that I wish we saw more of, if that makes sense. And the girl he was hanging with, her character name was Vicky, actress name was Lauren Marie Taylor. She was, probably would make my top 5 list of most attractive Friday the 13th girls. He was a pretty attractive individual. Plus, the one with the pug, her dialogue was beautiful. So.
The thing about that is, even though I agree with that, she was one of the more attractive girls in the movie, and she was clearly flirting with this guy like the whole time, and I'm just like watching this. I'm like, just fuck already.
I felt so bad for that guy, to be honest. Like, not only is he momentarily in the wheelchair, he has this decently attractive chick hitting on him, and he's about to finally potentially seal the deal, and then boom, something happens to him. So,
and while we're talking about the guys and girls getting together, that one guy towards the beginning of the movie who like slingshots a girl's ass. What a creepy looking motherfucker. He just like peers out and like shows his little slingshot like, it was me.
Yeah, that was one of my least favorite couples in the movie. I mean, they were really a couple, to be fair, but I feel like she was sort of flirting with him at times, but maybe I was misreading the situation, but I did care for that guy. So. he reminded me sort of as like one of those greases that you might see in a 50s movie. I don't know, that guy didn't do much for me.
He had a bit of a rapey look on his face in that first scene.
That is true too. But then again, you can understand why if there's just especially late in the movie when the individual is bathing nude, which is I think the only female who gets naked in this movie. But I mean, and that's always okay. I didn't have anything against it. I just didn't find that woman particularly interesting.
Probably my favorite character in the movie is the dog.
Marvin was it, I think?
I don't know the name, but I just enjoy... I like how it pops up at the end there, you know?
Speaking of which, the ending, it's not really psychedelic, but it's definitely a more sort of a dreamy type ending than than you might expect. Which, you know, I guess given the first movie might make sense, but I sort of like the sort of ambiguous ending. There's a character that we don't really know what happens, you know, to this individual, and then, you know, the movie ends with camera closing up on the face of the, you know, decapitated head of the mother. And on a side note, I am so happy that face didn't wink or smile or anything, because I mean, I think that's what they were originally going to do in the movie, but they thought it looked way too hokey. It just looked terrible, so they changed it, and I'm so happy they did. And I say this every time we talk about a slasher movie, but I'm a big slasher fan, and some of these classics, like, you know, the Halloween movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, I've seen so many of these so many times, and I can't even begin to guess how many times I've seen this one, but I would assume at least 8-9 times. You know, I think it's better than the first movie. I think the first movie is really good, and I think this was just a bit better. And I don't think it's the best one in the series. And I don't even think the Friday the 13th series is even like a over the top amazing series to begin with. So I just have a lot of respect for this. I'm a sucker for the whole like final battle during rainstorm and finding bodies, and I just enjoy the hell out of it. So I'm going to give this an 8.5. And I will probably round it down to an 8 out of 10. But it's still a movie I really enjoy, and I would never pass it up.
You better round that shit down. No, I give it a 7, and I mean, with our rating scales, it's not too far away from yours. It's certainly a little lower, but I think it's a better movie than the original movie, for a number of different reasons, which I think we've mostly touched on. You know, I think Jason works better, you know, as the bad guy in this movie than what we get in the original, and I think the characters overall are a little more enjoyable in this one than in the original movie as well. And it clearly has better kills as well. Not that I would say they're fantastic, anything that I would, you know, have to go back and watch on YouTube or anything like that, but enjoyable enough throughout the movie to fulfill your slasher urges or whatever you're trying to get out of a slasher movie in terms of kills. So
I do wish that this movie had another game as Chip Monopoly.
Maybe that would have finally got those two in the sack.